In Surah 23, Surah Al-Mu'minun, and verses number 12 to 16, there is a conglomerate of descriptions about the growth and development of the human embryo in precise sequences. It speaks about the nutfa. Then it says that God made you from the nutfa into alaqa. And alaqa in Arabic is a thing that clings. Now, alaqa could also mean a leech, which acts as a bloodsucker. Now, the human embryo at about 24 days old acts just like a leech. It embeds itself in the uterine wall. It develops chorionic villi, which will absorb the nutrients from the mother's blood. So it is doing precisely what the leech does. It acts as a parasite. Not a very nice description for a growing baby, but scientifically that is what it is. And in that case, we see that the Quran is very accurate in the way that it is describing this. And then from the alaqa, God says He made you into a mudgha. In Arabic, mudgha is a chewed lump, like a morsel. And Dr. Keith Moore from the University of Toronto made a plasticine model of the human embryo and bit into it to show the teeth marks deliberately impressed upon it. And those teeth marks actually resemble the somites which are forming on the human embryo at that stage as well. At 28 days old, when these observations can now be made, the human embryo is no bigger than a grain of rice. So one could not have studied this. When somebody first hears you describe this, they'll say, oh, maybe people, they were aborting many babies and they can study. But without the microscope, you couldn't study the human embryo at this early stage. So how could one have gotten this kind of information and put it into a book some 1400 years ago? We see that this is information from the unseen. I want to then pause here at regarding the scientific miracle of the Quran and go on to mathematics. Now when we mention the word mathematics, some people tune out because we know it. We hate math, right? At least some people do. But mathematics is at the root of everything. And Dr. Peter Atkins, a man whom I debated with some years ago, who is an avowed atheist, writes in his book Creation Revisited that mathematics is fundamental to the structure of the universe. In fact, it is found that this is one of the arguments for the existence of God, even if atheists will not accept it, that there are mathematical patterns in the structure of the universe. Moreover, the human mind is such that we have the capacity to understand mathematics, which is really abstract, but we have the capacity to understand it. So these are all some of the mysteries of life, but more to the point. If we find that things are found not scattered, but in a pattern, then that calls for a designer. There is someone who necessitated that pattern, who planned it that way. So if we find patterns in the universe, this becomes an argument for the existence of God. There is design, and therefore, there must have been a designer. In the Quran, we find that there are elements of design that are only now becoming apparent to us, and that were not known to our predecessors. Some of them made some observations here and there, but only some very initial sorts of observations, because they did not have the computer systems by which to count things in the Quran. They did not even have the kind of concordances we have today. Today, if one wants to find a word in the Quran that occurs wherever it occurs in the Quran, there's a simple way. One can go to the concordance, Al-Mu'jam al-Mahfaris li Alfaz al-Quran, prepared by an Egyptian scholar, Fuad Abdul Baqi, in 1938. By knowing the three-letter Arabic root system, one can go find the word based on its three-letter Arabic root and find every occurrence of that word anywhere in the Quran. And of course, Fuad Abdul Baqi has listed the verses there for us, so we can see this is how many times a word occurs in the Quran. Our ancestors did not have all of these tools, but they made sometimes some simple observations. For example, Fakhruddin al-Razi in his tafsir of the Quran, Mafatih al-Ghaib, looked at the fact that the Quran mentions that there are 19 angels guarding hell, and he correlated that to the fact that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the Basmala, is written with 19 letters. It doesn't have to be written with 19 letters, it could be written with 22. But since the time of Uthman radiallahu anh, Muslims have written it with 19 letters, and it has not changed since. It has remained there with 19 letters. So he says, okay, there are 19 angels guarding the hell, and there are 19 letters here. So obviously there's a correlation. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, wanting to know when the last, or explaining when the night of Qadr will occur, says that the number 7 has some significance, that there are 7 heavens, there are 7 earths, there are 7 circuits around the Kaaba, 7 times between Safa and Marwa, and so on. He mentioned many such examples, and then he said that finally he thinks that it must be within the last 7 nights of the month of Ramadan, Laylatul Qadr. And of course, if you think of that, then the 27th night is somewhere in between, in the middle of the last 7. So if you think of the 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, 29th, so the last 7 would include the 23rd, 25th, the 25th, 27th, and 29th will be included in that. You find different ways in which some of the scholars try to correlate something from mathematics with the text of the Quran. Ibn Atiyah, one of the great commentators on the Quran, exercises mind in thinking about when the night of Qadr will occur.